What would happen if other Nintendo characters were in Splatoon? What weapons would they play? Well, I actually had those questions answered for me when I watched Elie D games and AlsEggs videos on the question. The videos are great, and they're also the ones who actually came up with this idea, so give them a watch when you're done here. Though after watching their respective videos, I felt this idea could be fleshed out in so many more ways. So today, me and Rawliet are going to go over 10 Nintendo characters and what custom kit they would have in Splatoon 3. We'll both be covering 5 characters each, so once we're done with mine, go over to his video to see what characters he chose. Starting us off with the most iconic character I chose, we have Donkey Kong. I'm sure 99% of you watching the video know who Donkey Kong is and what he's about. He's big, he's strong, he got his banana stolen by a crocodile, and he is voiced by Seth Rogen. So naturally I had to go with a weapon that would fit his strong nature. And in the end, I decided on the Dynamo Kong roller with the kit of Splat Bomb and Kraken, with the points for special being 190 since Dynamo Paint is inconsistent. Also, you get it? Dynamo Cog DK? It writes itself, I know. I think many would agree that a Dynamo roller would just fit Donkey Kong well. It kills pretty easily and can put a lot of pressure on opponents with its horizontal and vertical flick. Maybe that's why his bananas got stolen. Splat Bomb was actually very easy to decide on. In the Donkey Kong Country games, there are barrels you can pick up and throw at enemies, or sometimes even roll on it. How is he doing that? And while Splat Bomb isn't the exact same, I thought it was the closest to a barrel you could get. Throwing it is fairly similar to throwing a barrel, and if you throw it quickly to make it explode faster, it could replicate hitting an enemy on the head with a barrel in the Country games. I was originally torn between choosing either Reef Slider or Kraken Royale for his special, as they seem to fit the most with Donkey Kong's strong offense and defense. But in the end, I decided Kraken Royale would be the more fitting of the two. Donkey Kong is hard to knock down, and it took a whole game for him to even get captured, and Kraken is pretty similar. Once it gets going, it's pretty much impossible to stop until it runs out of time. Maybe that's why his bananas got stolen. Kirby has always been a favorite series of mine, from the fun, relaxing level design to the memorable characters, the great side minigames, the chaotic multiplayer, and a torture session called the True Arena. I just had to pick a Kirby character for this video. I decided to not go with Kirby and give another character from the series some spotlight, and after tossing between Meta Knight and King DDD, I decided to go with Meta Knight, having the Galaxia Splatana Wiper with Fizzy Bomb and Inkjet. The Galaxia part of the name comes from Meta Knight's sword, and honestly, I thought it was called Master the whole time before we started working on this project. Amazing Mirror lied to me. It originally got dubbed Galaxia and Kirby Right Back At Ya, and ever since then they kinda just stuck with the name. If you ever played a Kirby game or even just Meta Knight and Smash Brothers, I think you know why I went with Wiper. They're both fast, can do some good damage, and are hard to ignore. Admittedly, I struggle with the sub-weapon as Meta Knight hasn't really been seen using other weapons besides his sword, but thinking back to all the Meta Knight fights from the Kirby series that I've played at least, he has a pattern to constantly walk back and forth, closing and opening the distance between you with the occasional sword swing. And that's a key factor that has always made Meta Knight battles so stressful. He's constantly putting pressure on you, and taking in that small detail, I decided Fizzy Bomb would be the best option. They don't cost as much as other sub-weapons and can be spammed pretty easily, which makes it hard for opponents to move in and attack, which is exactly how Meta Knight fights work. As for the special, Zipcaster seemed to fit the best since it's in the air and Meta Knight can fly. But after some more thought, I went with Inkjet instead. It still represents Meta Knight's ability to fly, but it's also the closest special that can represent Meta Knight's ship, the Halberd, and maybe Mecha Knight from Robobot, but I don't really know. I'll leave that one up to y'all Kirby fans. Next up is everyone's favorite Mario woman, Rosalina, using the Cosmic Heavy Splatling with the kit of Angle Shooter and Ink Store. Going off of how Rosalina is always considered a heavy in Mario spin-offs and how she requires 60 power stars to fully activate the Comet Observatory, I thought going with a more slow backline weapon that requires a charge would be fitting. Elie D was my first choice, but I felt it didn't have the same destructive power Rosalina had. She literally made a black hole at the end of Galaxy. I don't think Elie D is really matching that power even with its long range. So my next option was a Splatling, and Hydra was what I first had in mind. It matched that destructive power with its insane kill time, but Rosalina isn't really slow. She's floaty. She's the only character to have a double jump in Super Mario 3D World, so she has a good amount of movement options, hence why in the end I picked the Heavy Splatling. It's stationary for most of the match, but isn't afraid to move around or get a bit closer if needed, and still has a fast kill time. Angle Shooter represents Y'all gonna hate me for this. Angle shooter represents Lumas. They're small, cheap to use, pretty spammable, just like Lumas are. So if you ever see Rawliet using the splatling, just know she's using Lumas to locate you. I wanted her special to originally represent the black hole she made at the end of Galaxy, so I immediately went with Booyah Bomb, but I felt that was kind of boring. So after discussing it with more friends, I thought Inkstorm would be a better fit. It's not referencing Rawliet directly, but representing Galaxy as a whole, as there are a ton of star bits always falling from the skies in some levels. I don't know if that's Rawliet doing specifically, but I thought it would be a cool touch either way, and a giant cloud pouring down a bunch of star bits does sound kinda cool. Pokemon is my favorite video game franchise. I adore the series even now despite the many controversies each new installment comes with. So obviously I had to choose a Pokemon. And thankfully my favorite Pokemon is one of the more popular ones, that being Cinderace. It didn't take me long for this soccer bunny to become my favorite, and even years later I still love it just as much. I merely wanted to give Cinderace a fast upfront weapon and decided to go with the dually. After some back and forth, I gave Cinderace the Striker Splat dualies with the kit of Torpedo and Super Chump. The Striker part of the name comes from Cinderace's Pokedex entry where it's called the Striker Pokemon, and dualies I felt fit with Cinderace's high speed stat. Splat dualies are one of the better dualies when it comes to painting, which could kind of represent Cinderace's hidden ability Librio that allows him to switch types, but that one might be stretching it a bit. Torpedo I think is pretty obvious. It's a soccer ball when rolled on the ground and a pyro ball when thrown into the air. He better kick it in the air. Booyah Bomb again seemed to be a good fit for Cinderace too. The thought of a Gigantamax Cinderace kicking a giant Booyah Bomb just sounds cool as fuck. I just had to mention that somewhere. But the idea of Super Chumps, instead of acting like decoys, acted like Cinderace's teammates on the soccer field just sounded too funny to pass up on. It could potentially work both ways too. The Chumps are Cinderace's teammates distracting the enemy so Cinderace can catch them off guard and score. It's also 190p since Chumps aren't super threatening right now. Hopefully this time it doesn't end up like the time Japan picked Pikachu as their mascot for their team in 2014 and lost badly. Don't worry guys, Cinderace can actually ball unlike this rat. For my last character, I decided to go out of my comfort zone with this one and do a character from a series I've never played before, and randomly chose the Star Fox series. I felt with how Nintendo doesn't like to acknowledge the series nowadays, and most Nintendo fans don't even know what the hell a Star Fox is, that I could go with Fox himself for this last weapon. And well, I'm sure the 2 Star fans watching this are going to be surprised with what weapon I chose for Fox. No, seriously, take a guess. I'm sure you'll get it. Did you guess yet? Well, after one long minute of thinking, I went with the R-Wing Rapid Blaster for Fox with the kit of Auto Bomb and Crab Tank. I named it after Fox's ship, the R-Wing, because, well, Fox's weapon is literally just called a blaster. And I didn't want to call this weapon the Blaster Rapid Blaster, as funny as that sounds. The different spelling is just so people don't confuse it with the actual ship. The original blaster could have worked well for this, but with Rapid having the faster fire rate, I felt it was more accurate to Fox's weapon. Splash Wheel was actually my original choice since it's the closest we have to a reflector in Splatoon 3. I know it doesn't really reflect enemy pain, but you get my point. But after receiving feedback from my friend who's actually played Star Fox games, I decided Autobahn would be a more fun niche reference. Their missions in Star Fox Zero would use a small helpful robot called Direct Eye to clear parts of the mission Fox wouldn't be able to do alone. And well, what better sub-weapon to represent a robot with an awful name than Autobomb? It acts pretty much the same way it does in Star Fox Zero, just without the player directly controlling it. Crab Tank, I'm sure is an easy one to guess the inspiration from, even if you've never played a Star Fox game before. It's just Landmaster, just without the hovering and barrel rolls. There's honestly not too much else to explain here. They're both huge tanks and they both do tons of damage. It's too free to pass up. If you want to see Elie D and AlsEggs videos that originally inspired me to make this, check them out in the description below. And if you want to see what Rawliet picked for his 5 characters, then click the video on the left to go find out. Thanks again for watching.